Hey, everybody, welcome back. This week, I want to talk about the importance of going slow in the healing process of infidelity recovery. A few weeks ago, I talked about creating a safe environment, and probably in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to talk about grief. I think those are really three important tasks, things to consider in the healing process, the recovery process from infidelity of any kind. And there are three that people don't really like to talk about very much or explore very much because they're not as sensational as dealing with triggers or reminders, and all of that is important. But I think when I think about couples, and as a psychotherapist for almost 20 years, I think it's really important to consider these things. So that's why I want to spend some time today talking about the importance of going slow. I've witnessed the devastating impact of infidelity on couples and individuals, on extended families, and even in communities. The betrayal can shatter relational safety and trust and evoke intense emotional pain, and then also disrupt the foundation on which the relationship is built. You're probably in the midst of that or somewhere in the continuum of that healing if you're watching this video. But amidst this turmoil, there's also this path to healing and growth and transformation. And one of the crucial lessons that I have learned in guiding countless of individuals and couples through this process is the importance of slowing down, going slow in this recovery process. And I'm not talking about stopping. I'm talking about doing some work every single day, but it's a slow process. So first, we've got to understand the wound. Infidelity is not just a breach of trust. It's a wound in our relationship that cuts to the core of our being. It triggers a spectrum of emotions, anger and sadness and confusion and anguish, just to name a few. And just like any physical wound that requires time and attention and care to heal, emotional wounds, any emotional wound really, but emotional wounds from infidelity are going to require that same kind of attention. It's going to require some space and some patience for the healing process to begin, to continue till it's complete. And rushing through this healing process can be like ignoring a deep cut that leads to infection and scarring and improper healing. And the deeper the wound, the longer it takes. You know that on a physical wound and also with infidelity. And so since healing takes place really from the inside out, both physically and emotionally, you and others can often see the benefit of all the work, the little bit of work that you're doing every single day. And then there's usually a tipping point, and maybe there are several tipping points in this healing journey. The moment when you begin to see, sometimes get a little bitty glimpse of all your hard work. And taking time to allow for a thorough cleansing and a careful tending of the wound promotes healing in a way that is both complete and sustainable. So let's take a few minutes and talk about what the healing process looks like. And this is just a scratch in the surface of what the healing process looks like. It's what I see on a day after day basis after all these years. The first step in healing, just about anything, is just acknowledgement. It's the pain, the accepting that some days the pain is a 7, and some days it's a 3, and then the next hour you're at a 9. And this can make anybody feel more and more uncertain about the work that you're doing in recovery. I hear this all the time. Wayne, this isn't working. Well, if we take a pause and look at where they were when they first came to see me or when they first went to EMS and where they are now, they can say, yeah, okay, well, we're not where we were, but we're not yet where we want to be. Yeah, I totally get that. But recovery takes time. And if we can settle into that groove, it'll go much better. It doesn't mean that dwelling in the pain, but rather allowing yourself to feel the pain and understand and feel your emotions. It's super crucial. And I know that feeling these difficult emotions is so hard. People don't want to do that. Who wants to feel the grief or stay in the anger or the sadness or that deep anguish or despair? But if we allow ourselves to feel them and feel them till their fullest, it won't last as long. But the more resistance we have with those emotions, the longer we're stuck. That's most of the time my experience. So this is a crucial step that sets the foundation for genuine and deep healing. Another key aspect of this going slow through the healing process is learning to set boundaries. What I've learned over the process is, number one, most people are not good at setting boundaries. We don't understand what boundaries are. And a lot of times we think we have a boundary with somebody, but they didn't agree to something. It was just spoken, but we didn't wait for a clear, direct response to that boundary or an agreement to it. So there's some key things I just want to briefly touch on the boundaries today. I may do another video on this later. But a key aspect of the healing process involves this setting good boundaries. They're essential to protecting emotional well-being and creating a sense of safety for both partners. And these boundaries can range from requests for transparency to boundaries around communication or personal space. And establishing and respecting these boundaries, agreeing on them, takes patience and negotiation, and ensuring that both parties feel supported and heard. The other thing about boundaries is that it's an ongoing process. This isn't a one and done thing. You're constantly checking in with boundaries and making sure that they still apply, that both parties still feel respected in this, and are committed to them. That'll help strengthen the relationship in the long run. So I like what Brene Brown says about boundaries. She says, boundaries are a prerequisite for compassion and empathy. We can't connect with someone unless we are clear about where we end and where they begin. If there's no autonomy between people, then there's no compassion and there's no empathy. It's just enmeshment, this codependent, if I'm not okay, you're not okay. If you're not okay, I'm not okay. I've got to be all up in your business 365 days a year, 24/7. That would be enmeshment, and it's not helpful in the long run. So I mentioned this a few weeks ago when I talked about creating a safe space. It's job number one, in my opinion, for healing and rebuilding a relationship. It's fundamental to the healing process. And this means that when you've got to create this healing environment for both partners to feel secure and express their feelings and fears and desires without blame or judgment or even retaliation. It's a safe space that fosters open-heartedness and vulnerability, both of which are crucial elements for healing. I've said it so many times, but I feel like I want to say it again here. Vulnerability is the path to healing. And on that path of vulnerability, it's got to be met with empathy. Really from both parties, ultimately, if you're brand new in this process, the wayward spouse, the unfaithful spouse has got to lead the way in creating this space. Esther Perel talks about putting your arms around the relationship, being the guardian, the protector of it for a season. And that season may be a year or two. But then the other party has to come along and you have to do that work together. You can't do it otherwise. But it begins with vulnerability and empathy. I think those are also two really important pieces in this healing journey. So when you're focusing on safety, I see trust as a byproduct of that. And rebuilding trust is a journey that involves this consistent effort. I think consistency is a big piece in this. Transparency, honesty, and vulnerability. Trust is not just instantly restored with a single action or a single apology. It's rebuilt through daily interactions, intention, continuous, small little steps that demonstrate a commitment to change, a commitment to grow, a commitment to learn, and a commitment to never do this again and create this really wonderful connected relationship that I think everybody wants and to the core of our being. What I'm really talking about there is what they call in AA a living, breathing amend. It's a daily process. The way I see it in my way of thinking, everything starts with safety. And then trust becomes a byproduct of safety. And then you have relational intimacy. If you don't have those two things, I question what we're doing here or what we're working towards and what kind of intimacy is really there. So this relational intimacy is probably the third piece. It's this open, honest communication. It's the cornerstone of recovery. It involves this discussing feelings and fears and needs in a way that's respectful and constructive. And this process right here is inherently slow because you're each a system in and of yourselves, and then you're creating your own system. And there's a lot in the IFS language, there's a lot of parts at play there that need to be heard and understood. And oftentimes they need to be healed by releasing burdens that they are carrying and have been carrying since we were children, probably. So it requires a safe space where both of you feel heard and validated. And this is where I think the help of an experienced relationship therapist can help you identify this sequence, these cycles of relating where you focus on content of who's right and wrong, which isn't really helpful, but you focus more on the process and the underlying stories and experiences and feelings that have happened that have set you up to do the things that you do. Patience from both partners allows for the development of these critical steps that will foster connection and compassion and curiosity and understanding and healing in the long run. And then when you do all that, then couples can talk about possibilities and opportunities, because recovery from infidelity is also a time for personal growth and self-care. It's an opportunity to reflect on your own personal values, necessary boundaries, like I mentioned earlier, and then the nature of this relationship. As I work with couples, I often ask them 3 questions. Somewhere early in the process to begin them thinking about it is, what kind of relationship do you want? What kind of partner do you need to be in that relationship that you just described? And what is getting in your way? What really inside of us is getting in our way? Where are we getting in our own way? Those begin to open up this discussion about what do we want to co-create here? And this process probably involves some individual therapy, some group therapy, some couples therapy, and even secular research talks about the spiritual component to recovery, whatever that looks like for you. And the last piece I want to talk about today is about forgiveness. And whether it's for yourself or your partner or both, I want to say that forgiveness is a really complex process and it cannot be rushed. It cannot be rushed. I work with a lot of couples from faith, and there's this pressure either that they put on themselves or their spouse is putting it on them to forgive. And I get where that comes from, but it's not really helpful. If you do all the other work that we talk about through EMS and the other programs at a Fair Recovery, usually people get there on their own, but it might take 18 months to 2 years. When I'm working with a couple, I don't really even bring up forgiveness if they don't for for 9 months to a year. What I ask is that people are just open to it. Just be open to forgiving, because truly we have the freedom to not forgive. And some people don't forgive and they can move on. It's hard for me to imagine if we're not open to forgiveness, that the relationship will probably end at some point. But there's still no rush around it because of the complexity and all the intricacies of healing and forgiving that are at play here. I think forgiveness is a really personal journey that involves coming to terms with the pain, feeling the pain, understanding the circumstances as well as the personal choices that were made, and making a conscious decision and effort to move forward. I think patience in the forgiveness process allows it to be a choice that heals rather than either glossing over the pain or being forced to say the words. You know, when I was a little kid, my mom would say, apologize to your little brother. And so I would say, I'm sorry, just to get out of trouble and get to go on and do my own thing. And then one day I stood my ground and I said, no, I'm not ready to. So my mom made me stand there in the middle of the kitchen, not move until I was ready. So in a way, she gave me a choice, but not really. I was still forced to do it if I was going to go about my day. So I don't want to gloss over anything. I don't want people to feel pressured or forced to forgive, either whether it's themselves or the other person. Forgiveness is an intricate and complex thing that I think needs to happen, but it has a lot of time there. And if you do all the other work, it really is kind of a natural process most of the time. So really what I'm asking you all to do is really just embrace this journey and take your time. Recovery from infidelity is not a race. It's a journey that is unique to each individual and each couple. You know, we paint a broad brushstroke, but we know that every couple is unique. So embracing patience allows for a deeper and more meaningful healing process. It acknowledges the complexity of human emotions and, quite frankly, just being a human on the planet at this time. It's providing the space needed to rebuild on the foundation of safety and trust and understanding and ultimately love. And if you're navigating this path, remember you can't do this alone. People try to do it alone all the time. And I've had people come into my office, they've been working on it on their own for 18 months or 2 years and even 5 or 6 years. And it's just super hard to do it alone. And it's better if you go slow. Be kind to yourself, seek support, and trust the process. The journey through infidelity is challenging, but it can also lead to profound growth and deeper connection than you've ever experienced before. I hear that every day. If I didn't get to witness the transformation that I see men and women and couples go through, I wouldn't be doing what I do. In the realm of healing, patience is not just a virtue. I see it as a necessity. Setting and respecting boundaries and creating a safe space for healing are crucial on the journey, because they're the safeguard. The emotional health of both partners pave the way for a stronger, more connected, more resilient relationship. And if you're looking for the next right step, I can think of no better place than to start with the EMS weekend offered by Affair Recovery. In this intensive weekend, you'll find a well-researched, well-proven path. I went through this path almost 30 years ago now, 29 years ago. It was created by infidelity recovery pioneer Rick Reynolds, who we all know and love. And you can find all the details at affairrecovery.com under the programs tab. Please do yourself a favor and check out the details of that program. I think it will be well worth your time and the expense. So thanks so much for joining me. It's always good to be with you. I'll see you again real soon.